Okay, listeners, don't panic. The Midwest Arts Expo is coming, and There's No Business Like will be in booth 511. Will we have something to give away? Solid maybe. We haven't actually made those plans. I mean, come on, we're on summer break. Will there be witty banter? For sure. Will there be some awkwardness? Absolutely. Have you met me? And if the answer to that is no, then you should definitely visit booth 511 at the Midwest Arts Expo. Midwest Arts Expo, September 15th through the 18th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We'll see you there. Register now at MidwestArtsExpo.org.
Welcome to There's No Business Like. This is Danielle from the Alden in McLean, Virginia. I hope you've been enjoying our summer rewind series. What I love about these is that there's usually one or two big things that stick with you from these interviews. But listening again, sometimes you hear things in a way that you didn't before, or it just reminds you again how brilliant the interviewee really is. This episode, I decided to throw us back to episode 65, Wone Vang, Never Give Up on Your Stupid Stupid Dreams. I chose this because new, different, and innovating funding models have been on my mind. As an industry, we have talked for years about finding new models of funding that are more sustainable, equitable, and allow us to get away from a scarcity mindset. But now the systems that got us here are getting even harder to navigate. I don't know what the answer to the funding dilemma is, but I know that we need to keep trying to find solutions for our challenging landscape, especially those that provide longer-term funding cycles. And I think Wone's work in studying guaranteed income models could be a solution for some, or maybe even lead us to something better. In equity work, we talk a lot about moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach and tailoring solutions to unique circumstances. Where else could this model fit? Where or who else might be interested in funding programs like this? Let's talk about it. Let's keep studying, let's keep connecting, and let's never give up on the stupid, stupid dream of payment equity. And yes, by stupid, stupid, I am being incredibly sarcastic for the terms urgent and necessary. I just love the title of this episode so much. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this rewind with Wone Vang.
Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever time of day you're listening to it. Thank you for tuning in to There's No Business Like. And this week, I am joined with the fanciest of friends, Danielle.
Hey, everybody. It's Danielle Van Hook from the Alden in McLean, Virginia.
Brian.
How you doing, young man? I'm Brian Zelmer from KU Presents in Kutztown, Pennsylvania.
Katie.
I cannot take you seriously right now. Hi, Kevin. This is Katie from the Midland Center for the Arts in Midland, Michigan.
And Josh.
Josh Benson rocking it from Marion, Illinois.
And this voice you're hearing right now is Kevin Maynard from Quad City Arts, splitting the border between Iowa and Illinois. Well, that was fun. Thanks for indulging me there. So this week I sat down with Wone Vang from Springboard for the Arts. But outside of that, Wone is also a cross-stitch artist. So I was wondering, what phrase would you cross-stitch onto something that you identify with?
Mine would be pain is just weakness leaving the body, but I would want a big gash bleeding along the side of it.
I don't know why, but I think every cross-stitch art that I've had or I've seen has been located in a bathroom. And I don't know why that's the case. But so I have this association with it being one of the first things I see in the morning. And probably 8 out of 10 mornings, the first thing I think of when I get up is everything hurts and I'm dying, which is a Leslie Knope quote from Parks and Rec when he has the flu. But whenever anybody asks me how I'm feeling, half of the time I just want to be everything hurts and I'm dying.
Danielle, I also would put a Leslie Knope quote on a cross stitch that says, "One person's annoying is another person's inspiring and heroic." Because as a woman, a lot of people think my drive and ambition is annoying, but I think I'm setting a great example for other young women in my world.
I do too.
If I hang it up in my office, mine is, "It can wait till tomorrow."
Ooh, that's a good one. I think mine would just say, "This is fine."
With the dog on fire.
With the dog in the house burning down.
Or just that or just a dumpster fire. Either one. Well, thanks, friends. Now please enjoy this conversation with Wone Vang.
My name is Wone Vang. I work at Springboard for the Arts, and my current title is Economic Opportunity Director.
Juan, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you having this conversation with me. Obviously, one of the things I want to talk to you about is the things that you're doing with Springboard. But before we dive into your role there, I thought it'd be great to talk a little bit about you. Can you tell me a little bit about the path that brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, I'm what you call a full-time, part-time artist. It started out as a hobby. So my younger sister and I run a business called Third Daughter, Restless Daughter. And we do funny pop culture, snarky cross stitches. If you think of it, we've done it. We've been doing it for 7 years now. And she had originally started it as a way to do inexpensive presents for friends. And then she got really busy. So then I jumped in and I ended up managing a lot more of our relationships, our partnership with people and events and stuff. So, and more the business side. And then now we've grown in the past 7 years, we've grown to do larger installations. So we have a couple installations at a restaurant. Actually now there's 3 restaurants of the same restaurant. So we've done it for all 3 restaurants now, and they're huge. They're 8 feet by 10 feet.
Wow.
Also at the M, and then Springboard, and Springboard for the Arts, had us commission a piece before I started there. So, and that's kind of how that path and that connection that I had with Springboard that led me to working with them.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So I've seen your work, and I think I told you, but first time I clicked through your website, I was like, oh my gosh, it's this brought me so much joy, because it's very fun, but it is it's a little snarky, and I absolutely loved it. I was curious though, the name Third Daughter, Restless Daughter, where did that come from?
It came after a song that she had called Second Daughter, Restless Daughter. So then she was Third Daughter, Restless Daughter. So she is actually the third daughter. So when she started it, that's what she named it. When I jumped in, she's like, well, we could change the name. I'm like, no, I like the name. So now I end up being the Restless Daughter, even though, so that's how it kind of that name kind of started. And it just kind of stuck, because then it worked well with everything that we fell right in line with us, being that we are both the middle child out of 4. Typical siblings, I should say, that who fights when they're together, but yet we mesh very well together.
That is a very similar relationship that I have with both of my sisters. Sort of speaking on your work as well. So at the bottom of your website on our homepage, you have this tagline that says, because our lives are dope and we do dope shit. So I'm curious where that came from, because I saw it and I was like, I love that.
I know. It's funny because we have 2 quotes that we have. So one quote that we actually started out with was the "Never give up on your stupid, stupid dreams." And that is that's how we started. And
also
so,
what a great mantra that is.
Yes, yes. Eventually, the Dope Life one, it was a Dave Chappelle one that he was talking about Kanye West. Gotcha. And so it just kind of, for some reason, stuck. Amazing, this journey that we've actually come in with our cross stitching, starting out with just cross stitching and then growing into installations. And then recently, in the last couple of years, of growing and doing more community events that would help, better the individuals, the artists, the small businesses within our community too, the Little Asia Market that we've been doing for the last 2 years. And that has been amazing. We've seen the amazing support behind that, and our turnout, and our artists who are part of this event, and then the mission behind it too.
Very cool. Kind of circling back a little bit, you said your sister started doing the cross stitching. Is what got her into cross stitching originally? Was that just something she saw the art form, was like, oh, I want to do this, or was there? I mean, did you do it growing up?
In the Hmong traditional culture, there's a traditional cross stitching called bandao, which means it's flower cloth or story cloth. So, and as my grandmother had done it, it was a way for her to make something new, for whether it's decoration for your New Year's outfit, or adding that element. And so my grandmother was doing it for years. She taught my mother, and my mother both of them were great at what they did. Growing up, we learned it through my grandmother and my mother, just like, and I remember like sitting down and just, you sit on this like really low kind of, we call it a cutting, just sit on it and you're stitching for hours and hours because you want to be able to complete this outfit by the time of when New Year came. So that's kind of how like we learned it. We've been in the US since I was 5. So we had come from Laos is where I was born, and then originally then went to Thailand, and then now live in the U.S. and haven't been that first generation immigrant. They haven't to Americanize everything, and being that we knew some of the techniques, we ended up doing like more Americanized, like the cross stitching kits that you would buy from like Michaels and Joanne Fabrics, and then life happened, and then many years passed, and then so when Yua was doing it, she like I said, she started it as a way to like make presents.
Very cool. Getting back to Springboard for the Arts, you mentioned like, well, I guess one of my questions was how you got there initially, but you did an installation piece with them, which is how you kind of connected with them originally. What led you to where you're at with them now after that?
The great thing is like my sister Yua encouraged me to like pursue it. She's like, do it. She's like, you want to work with arts. You want to work for artists. It's something you've always wanted to do. So, and that's kind of how that, like my love and my passion for working with other artists, because I felt like when you are around other artists, when you can bring people together to be able to work together, there's so much good happens from that, And so when I decided to and applied for the position, it was like one of those things where I was like, I don't think I'm going to get it. And I did. So, and that was a change of my life. And this only happened last September, but this was a change in my life where I was like, this is a good change. I'm glad I did this,
That's awesome. Yeah. I have that same response. I think every job that I've ever applied for, I'm not, they're not going to call. Why would they call, So your title there is Economic Opportunity Director. What exactly is that?
Mm-hmm. I know it's a big title. If you have like formal description, it's like leading and implementing like Springboard's economic opportunity programs that like build relationships between artists and communities. So basically it's really leading programs that will help connect communities and artists, help them support them so they can in the end financially support themselves in a way. There's like several things that fall underneath my umbrellas. I work with a team of 2, plus then we have like, the whole staff that we work together. Some of the programs that fall underneath me is the Growth Fund, where we funded 16 artists, $2,500. It's hard because you don't think of artists as businesses because, they're one person most of the time, maybe 2 at the most. When you think about it, they are a micro business. And that is like one of the hard things.
Yes, this is something that we talk about a lot, that like, especially in our office at Quad City Arts, like we're just explaining to people that artists are their own business. And even artists have sometimes, they don't think about it that way. They're like, oh, I'm just creating. And like, I sell a little bit of work. I'm like, yeah, but that's a business. Like you have to, there's a lot that goes into that.
Because you make that exchange or the interaction with others. Either you're selling your talent, you're selling your work, or you're selling something. We have a resource lab, and then we provide like technical assistance programming within our economic opportunity team. So this includes like professional development. It means one-on-one consultations. We have a huge roster of fabulous, these wonderful like consultants. And if you think of anything that you wanted to ask, probably have a consultant to cover that. So let's say that you wanted something on like how to set up your business. We have a consultant that can walk you through some of these things and guide you. Marketing, accounting. We have lawyers that we work with that can help you with some pro bono work, whether it's like helping you read a contract, and reviewing a contract, or if you wrote a contract and just to make sure that it's, if there's anything missing, they are specialized in that. Then we work with our community development team who does a lot more community events and getting out to the community and that interaction that happens too.
I think that that's absolutely incredible. I mean, because one of the things, we talk about on this podcast a lot is just access to resources and what artists need, and sometimes don't even realize that they need until they're out there doing it. So this podcast particularly focuses primarily on performing arts and touring arts, which makes this interview a little bit of an outlier for us. I specifically wanted to talk to you because one of the things that we always start talking about and that kind of continually comes up is the conversation surrounding pay and pay equity. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you're running and what Springboard for the Arts is doing with their guaranteed income program. So can you talk a little bit about that, how the project started and why?
Yeah. So a little bit of history of what the guaranteed income is. The program is a monthly payment of $500 to individuals. And it's unconditional. There's no strings attached, no work requirements. And then, but we also wanted to supplement artists' incomes and not replace like the existing social safety net that they have. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, in the end, it could also be like a tool for racial and gender equity. Mm-hmm. It started back right in the midst of the pandemic. So Springboard did a little like fundraiser. So we got funds. So we were able to fund artists with this. So then in our head, we knew that artists were in need at that time. Mm-hmm. We were probably right at the forefront of the guaranteed income focus on artists because San Francisco had ran the first one. And then we were right around I want to say that we were at the beginning. So we were either like the second or third nonprofit organization or even organization that targeted just artists. Since that 2021, we have seen several other organizations who've used similar models of supporting artists through this guaranteed income. And it's been amazing to be able to say, hey, we were at the beginning of it. So we do get a lot of people who reach out and said, hey, mm-hmm. How did you do this? What did you do? And then the great thing is we had like templates of like letters that we wrote out, our structure and stuff. So we were able to help support more programs like this nationwide.
Wow. Very cool. So how is it funded? I mean, is this, I assume by different foundations or grants? I mean,
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's all private funding. It's not public funding that we receive, which is amazing that we were able to get that support.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly truly incredible. So you said it's unconditional. So, I mean, there's no like work component tied to that. I'm sure with the first round, you obviously have seen outcomes and know that there's been some positive outcomes from it because obviously you're running it again. I guess two questions, like one, what are some of those outcomes? And then two, how are you collecting those stories?
We work with the researcher over at UPenn or University of Pennsylvania. So, and they are doing research on the whole overall, like guaranteed income. Our lead researcher, her name's Dr. Kaylin Flynn, amazing person, the nicest person ever. She's doing all this research for us. So not just us, but overall, like for their program. But we're working with her directly. She is in direct communication with the artists. Based off of the data that we receive, they were definitely using the money at first towards things that we would expect, whether it's paying rent, handling some emergencies, food, the typical things. But the great thing is like over time, like as they get more comfortable, because like when you get this like offer like this, you're like, okay, well, I need to make sure that I use that money for certain things. And you don't think about like, okay, so is this money going to last? Or am I going to, is it too good to be true? Mm-hmm. And so over time, like it was great to be able to know that they're starting to use the funds towards things that better their career, that would better what they do. You know, so I would hear stories like, I took classes, I'm a little bit more stable, so I was able to take that money and use it towards like a course to develop my artistry.
Very cool. This is sort of a weighted question. Kind of curious, like, do you think that this is a viable program long term?
I don't know. On a personal level, what I would love to see is now that we've had some type of this program in place, you know, for at least our second round, because what we did was the first 25 artists that was in the program in the first phase was able to roll over for another 18 months. So they have 36 months total. Wow. So we wanted to kind of see like, hey, if we carry those first 25 artists ongoing, what can I do for them? And then on this phase 2, we have 25 again in the Rondo Frogtown neighborhood. So the same neighborhood. So 25 fresh new people. And then we also wanted to see how the Otter Tail County, which is more of a rural area, like how do the artists in that community, how do they use their funds? You know, like how does, by supporting them with this $500, how does that support them? And that is the Otter Tail County area. That's one of the first or rural community of artists. Wow. So which is going to be really nice to see where that data is. But ideally, like I would love to see, since we are piloting, we're trying this, like, can this policy move forward outside of Springboard by just piloting and getting this data? Is there some type of policy movement that could happen?
I'm fascinated by it because I think that, I mean, obviously you're going to see it firsthand, and you are seeing it firsthand, that there's going to be some incredible outcomes from it. And especially since you're able to roll over that first group to see what that long-term impact is, I'm excited for you. Like, I think it's just going to be really great. And I think it really has a potential to make the case as to why something like that's important. I mean, even just in the arts, one of the things we talk about a lot is like just grant dollars and like grant dollars to organizations. And, you know, we obviously all advocate for like operating dollars because we believe that our organizations and our boards know how to best spend that money. And it's a very similar aspect when you do the same thing for artists or to individuals saying like, look, you know where you need this money from. And just having that peace of mind gives them an opportunity to create from that space versus, you know, creating from a space of like, I have to make my rent, which I think is very different headspace.
Yeah, there are definitely lots of successful artists who can be full time. There's so many out there who has to like determine like, can I got to work, but I have the space that I need to get my work out. You know, when I go into work, I'm up till like 3 o'clock in the morning. Like,
yeah,
I mean, like, I'm just like, I work and then I get home, eat dinner, you know, and take care of my niece and my mom, and you know, and then I'm in the space where I'm gonna just work for the rest of the night on my artistry.
Yeah. Wow. Obviously, I think like doing with everything that you're doing with the guaranteed income program and your role at Springboard, I'd like to talk a little bit about pay equity because it's something that comes up from us, and I imagine your role in doing those things, you might have some information on this. And so, I mean, obviously, like we know that there is a pay equity gap. I mean, just as far as like gender and race, and honestly, even from the top level employee to your lowest level employee, like there's giant gaps there.
There is. I mean, like women get paid 84 cents to every dollar paid to men. You know, when you like break down all the data, like Black women, it's like 67 cents to every dollar of a non-Hispanic white man. A mom is 74 cents to a dollar to a dad. Native women is 57 to a non-Hispanic white man. And then Asian is like 92 cents for every dollar to a non-Hispanic white man, which was funny. I was having a discussion with that one with my sisters because like, I was like, I think that because this came from the census, the most recent census where this data came from. And I was sitting there, I'm like, that was the Asian American one was a little bit hard because like, I was sitting there and I was like, I don't think I feel that, you know, for me as being among first generation, immigrant to the U.S., I was like, I don't see that for myself because of the struggle that we went through, you know, like with my dad. And my dad was very educated in Laos. He was very smart, but coming to the U.S., you know, that definitely changed for him. Like, you know, so he wasn't working at where he would be based off of his education, but he was so intelligent and so smart and educated. But he was probably getting paid definitely on that lower half too with that. And then this was back in the early 80s, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to get this taken the wrong way, but women still end up taking care of the children a little bit more.
Well, yeah, I think like studies continue to show that women have a disproportionate amount of like household chores and duties in comparison to typically their male partners. That they're still, yeah, you're right. They're going to work and then they're coming home and they're taking care of the family on top of making less at their job.
Yep. But can we change that by making sure that, like we were saying about like the job postings, like making sure that it's known what people will get paid for it, so that there's no like going lower for somebody whether it's based off of race or gender. Yeah,
exactly. So before we wrap up here, one of the things that we love to do on this podcast is get in a time machine and go back to a certain point in someone's life. So for you, I would like to go back to the point where you started working with your sister and creating art and doing the cross stitch with her. If you could go back to talk to yourself back then, what would you tell yourself? What's the advice that you would give yourself?
Back in the days, pricing was a huge thing. Like it was like we were pricing our cross stitch, which is now like we priced at like $60. We were pricing it at $20.
Ooh.
Yeah. All the work that you put in it, because we didn't know, and we're just like, oh, we're just happy to get it out there in the world, kind of type of thing. But like now that if I was to go back, I was like, okay, first of all, your cross stitching back then was crap. It's not good. You need to work on it better. But it would have been like, you need to price more, you need to make sure that you're making what you the time that you put into it. Yeah.
Excellent.
And then also the other advice that I would give myself is like, you're going to fight with your sister, but you guys will always be sisters.
I love that. Well, Juan, I appreciate your time today. This has been really great to talk with you, learn a little bit about you, and obviously some of the great things you're doing at Springboard.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. So my favorite thing to come out of this episode is their mantra and phrase, "My life is dope and I do dope shit."
Love that.
I am living for that right now.
Yes.
I had to go to their website right away and look at all of their stuff. And there is so many brilliant, funny, great, snarky, as they say, things on there. And I recommend everybody go there, go to their shop and buy all their stuff.
Snarky cross stitching is probably now my favorite snarky art form. It's fabulous. And I need some of it in my house and in my life.
I also really appreciated the conversation about pay equity. And I was wondering if you could talk about that.
I spent a little bit of time like reading up on this because I was wondering, specifically like what can we do as individuals or as employees to help do this? Some of that is just being a bit more transparent on salary information. I mean, sharing, talking about salaries like with people who are in similar positions or within your same organization in similar positions. But one thing I thought was really interesting when I was looking at a list for employers, when you enter a position that hires people and sets those pay ranges, you should do a pay audit to see what everybody is making, because as that is a great time to make sure that you are being equitable in those practices once you have that power. The other thing is transparent salary policies. For instance, posting your salaries on job descriptions and making sure that people know those. But the one I thought was really interesting that I'd never actually heard of was to provide your employees with negotiation training, which is something I didn't even know existed. Where places to research salaries, how to negotiate fairly, and how to, sometimes like check your own bias, because you can get very emotional when you're talking about salary and talking about money and, thinking about how that's going to affect everything outside of your job. So how to, sort of keep some of those emotions in line in that process, which I thought was really interesting. I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, Kevin. And I love so much more that we're talking about these kind of pay equity conversations, whether you're talking about positions like we're in organizations or artists. And she had mentioned the study that they were doing with UPenn about the like long-term impact of the guaranteed income. And I looked that up, and it's connected with Stanford. They have a basic income lab. There is a part of the website where they're tracking like how many kinds of pilot studies like this one are happening. And you can see like how many participants are involved like across the country, what kind of expenses they're using. And like, it just kind of gives you a real-time look at the different things people are trying. When you asked her, like, is this going to continue? Is this something that would be great? I loved her answer of like, we'll see. I think we all kind of see that there's something that could happen or that this could benefit. And I'm so glad to see that there's so many places where we're just getting information and trying to figure this out. Because like the first step is talking about it and like understanding what pay equity is. And so I just love any way that we can highlight this. And, the work that she's doing is so incredible.
Having that income is for most people in those programs is mostly about survival, which I think is, both interesting and tragic, to be honest.
Well, right. Because we want artists to be able to have a long career and to be able to be in the industry for a long game. And like, in order to do that, you have to be able to have the financial stability of any other person, and like the hope that you can build generational wealth and the hope that you can put savings into a rainy day fund and retirement. We need to find more ways to support artists so that they can live like people.
If you want to dig more into the specific program that Springboard was doing, they have a really fantastic 14-page report on their website that maybe we can link in the show notes called The Art of Economic Justice, an impact report on the guaranteed income pilots for artists and creative workers in Minnesota that was published earlier in 2023. And it goes into a lot more depth and detail, including how they are using storytelling to change the narrative around universal basic income and the lives of artists and how the impact storytelling can have on public policy. So I thought that was a really fascinating part of this program and impact that it's having. So I would encourage everyone to go take a look at that report and read a little bit more in depth about the work that they're doing.
From, my perspective as somebody that's, in a very urban kind of setting is, maybe biased. But, I don't think of these kind of studies as happening in some place that's like not a huge urban center or, even out in more rural communities. And with Springboard doing this, I mean, they're obviously in a large metropolitan area, but like she's talking about expanding this out into rural communities. For anybody that kind of thinks a lot of these innovations kind of come out of cities and sometimes where the stories come from, but we don't necessarily always pay attention to the smaller places that exist in this country or, more rural communities. I'm so glad that they're not ignoring the fact that like this might be different in a rural community, that we don't need to wait for huge organizations to do this. Like we can do this on a small scale on our own, funded by our own community. And like that's possible.
The other part of the conversation you had, Kevin, was you dived a little into talking about gender and pay and the impact of unpaid labor on women, particularly in the workplace, and their ability to earn a living wage and that sort of thing. So, and I am certainly not an expert in this area. I have my own personal experiences with this, but I just wanted to point everyone in the direction of a great resource online. I follow this woman, Stephanie O'Connell Rodriguez, on Instagram. She is a journalist and writer covering ambition, money, and power, and she has her own website, has been on many different news outlets, does great YouTube videos, but her handle on Instagram is Stephanie O'Connell. And she reports specifically on data and research around these issues. And I think the conversation starts with data. It starts with research. To have a really deep understanding of how these issues impact people in their real lives, you've got to start with the numbers. If you want to learn more about this, it's imperative that you take the time to do some of the reading and the research and the learning yourself. And then, as we've talked about in the past on this podcast, talk to the people in your life that are experiencing those issues and get their perspective and get their real world experience. So then you may be able to make some changes within the organizations that you work into, like Kevin was talking about, and think about how those policies have real world impacts on the people around you.
Katie, I couldn't agree more about to look at the data and the research, especially making sure that it's scientifically done. As Wone said in the interview, that she didn't feel it because the number was higher than she expected. And oftentimes there's, a lot of anecdotal or personal experience where it doesn't match up. We may have individual experiences that are outliers from the data. It's saying that the vast majority are according to the data. We need to make sure we're looking at the actual data that's done by people that are doing it correctly and getting the research done properly. And that tells the story of the greater population. Again, there's always going to be outliers and examples that can, have the opposite effect, but it doesn't mean that it's not a problem.
Well, friends, thank you for having this conversation with me, and I look forward to continuing this conversation on future episodes. And we look forward to seeing you back here on There's No Business Like.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
I forgot who I was talking with, and they're like, wait, Josh Benson? I'm like, yeah, I'm on a podcast with him. Like, oh, do you hear he got hit by a car? wish I could remember who that was.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, that was really funny. I should have told you that when I forgot all about it.
Man.
That's really funny.
It's the most impressive thing is that it was in Toledo, and I think I saw 3 cars the entire time we were there.
There's no Toledo.
I know. I thought you were making
no
it up when you
traffic.
told us. It's like we'd been joking about the traffic.